Hey everybody, welcome back to Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com, and here on my YouTube channel. And this video, I'm doing a 6-month update, 6-month review, if you will, about the SSL Origin. I've had this console now about 6 months, and I thought it would probably be a good idea because I get a lot of questions about it in the comments sections of other videos and through email, through the website. People asking me after, you've had it a while, what do you think about it? What do you like? What don't you like? What are your overall thoughts? And those kinds of things. So I thought I would do that in this video, do a kind of a 6-month update, talk to you about where we've been, what I've done on it so far, what I like, what I don't like. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. So if you wanna hear the SSL in action and you want more sound examples, this is not the video for you, but you could check the other videos in the playlists because we've already done a couple of live mixes from start to finish. We've done some gear demos. There's lots of videos showing, or so you guys could hear what the console sounds like. And we'll do more of those in the future. So if you like what you see in this video, please consider subscribing and also hit the notification bell and make sure you check out what I have going on in mixingmusicanalog.com. I really appreciate it. So anyway, got some notes here. I want to talk about what my thoughts are and kind of summarize the last 6 months. So when we purchased the console was purchased in June of 2021. As of the recording of this video, this is January 2022. So we purchased it in mid-June of 21. We took delivery of it on July 7th, 2021, and you guys saw that video. Again, there's a whole mini series of videos from the time that we got it delivered to uncrating it to setting it up and all the way through where we sit today. So go back and check out those videos if you haven't. There's probably 8, 10, 12, 15 videos showing you the entire process of getting it in here, getting it installed, bringing it down into the studio, so on and so forth. So we got it delivered on January 7th. Now we finished installing it and got it to commission it from July 7th, through August 31st of 2021. So it took about 6 or 7 weeks from the time that it got delivered here till the time that we were completely finished installing phase 1, as we affectionately called it, Dave and I, my partner here, who helped me install this console and all the hardware and everything else. Now, the reason why it took that long, it wasn't because it takes that long to commission a console. It doesn't. 3 weeks of that time, I was actually out of town on vacation. So I took delivery, as I said, July 7th, and then I had a 3-week vacation. I wasn't here. So we didn't really get back until probably the beginning of August. Is really when the work kind of started, and it took about 4 weeks. And the reason why it took 4 weeks was because, once again, I wanted to document the process for you guys to show you how this is done, because there is nobody else on YouTube that shows you how to install this console, or really any console, not in any great detail. And I was doing that with my friend Dave, as you guys have seen in all the videos of getting this thing installed. And he came up from out of state, so he was only able to come here on weekends. So I would purposely save the install process for the weekends. When he came up here, we had something that we can film. So that's why it took about 4 weeks to commission this console. Realistically, if you bought one of these or bought a console, something similar, you can have it installed in a day or two, but it took us about 4 weeks. So we finished, I think, on August 31st, 2021. So I really started to mix on this in the beginning of September. So from the beginning of September till now, January, I've probably done maybe 12, 15 mixes on this thus far. And so now I've gotten my hands on this enough. I can tell you, kind of the things I like, don't like, and what my overall thoughts are. So I've been mixing on it since September. So September, October, November, December, 4 solid months going into January here, about 5 months of actual work. So let me talk about the things that I like about it first. Generally speaking. So the first thing I really like about it is the overall build quality. And I've been asked about that before. I did a separate video on the channel. You can check the playlist, where I actually got up with the iPhone and walked you through an entire channel strip and showed you as best you can on video the quality of the knobs and the buttons and the switches and the faders and all of that stuff. And the quality of it is what you would expect it to be. In my past life, many years ago, I've worked on a couple of API consoles. I worked on an old 4000 for a short period of time. I've worked on a Sony console in large format studios, and I remember touching those consoles, and this is the same thing. It feels the way you would expect it to feel. It's not cheaply made. It doesn't feel chintzy or, just lower quality in any way. And I know people are concerned or have been concerned and have voiced that to me because, you know, for the price point of this console, you know, being that at the time that I purchased it, slightly under $50,000, which we'll talk about in a bit, that, you know, for $50,000 to have a full inline console, you know, did they cheap out on the quality of the parts and the craftsmanship and that stuff? And from what I can tell, guys, honestly, I don't see that. I don't feel that way, not even a little, as far as the quality of the way this thing is put together. I can tell you it's built like a tank. It's as heavy as all can be. It's 400 pounds. Believe me, we picked it up, I know. And so it's built well. So I don't think you have to worry about the quality. I think part of the reason why this console is so affordable in the console world is because, and I know SSL has made this public, they've said this, that I believe the componentry for a lot of this console is made in China and overseas, and it was assembled and tested in the UK. And I think that might be different than maybe what has happened in years gone by, and that's one of the reasons why it's cheaper, because the labor is cheaper to produce some of this stuff. And also too, I think since the Origin was designed and built, SSL was purchased by a larger company or merged with a larger company that has a lot more funds. They can share overhead expense, that kind of thing. So I think between maybe the acquirement of SSL and the fact that it's made overseas, at least the components are, is one of the reasons why it is more affordable. And so, but again, I don't feel like it's cheap or chintzy in any way. You can go watch the video where I come up with the iPhone and show you the quality of the switches and buttons. It feels good to me. So that's the very first thing I like. The second thing that I really liked about the experience, and just again, this is a big deal when you're making a purchase of this size. This is the most money I've ever spent on my studio. You know, 50 grand is a lot of money to everybody, right? And not only that, all the hardware and all the I/O. I mean, it's not just the console. But the SSL customer service has been really, really great. Now, I purchased my console through Sweetwater, as you all know. And so, you know, I've said it a million times, Sweetwater's got the best customer service in the business, hands down, period, full stop, you know. And I truly believe that they were great. And because, you know, I bought it through Sweetwater, you also get a 2-year warranty on it. But even prior to purchasing it through Sweetwater, I had reached out to SSL, and one of the engineers and people that work there, James is watching. Hey, James, I know he watches the channel from time to time. He was very helpful. I was easily able to get a hold of him prior to making a purchase, told him I was looking at the Origin. I actually was looking at the Origin and the AWS by SSL and a couple other manufacturers. And I would love to talk to him about the Origin because it had just come out in the beginning of 2020, and then COVID hit, and I knew nothing about it. I couldn't go sit in front of one. I had to really buy it sight unseen. And at that time, there wasn't even any videos on YouTube. There was a couple of videos by SSL at the AES show, but that was it. You couldn't really demo the thing. And they were great, and James was great. He contacted me right away. He set up an hour Zoom session with me where, you know, he didn't charge me anything, and he had a camera on the Origin and the offices there at SSL, and he walked me through things. He answered all of my questions. He was very friendly, very helpful. Since I've even taken delivery of the console, there's been a handful of emails back and forth with him asking about routing and hookup and some of the things as I was getting to install this and learn about the routing and such of the console. And again, very good customer service, very easy to get a hold of, very detailed in his answers. He was very helpful. And so thank you, James, if you're watching this video. I do appreciate that. And again, when you're buying something of this, I feel like between Sweetwater and SSL, if there was ever a problem or ever an issue or ever had a question, that I could easily get support. And I like that about, yes, that's not about this physical console, but it says more about SSL, the company. And I could tell you quickly that prior to an SSL, I looked at a couple other name brands. I won't mention them. I talked to a couple other distributors of those name brands and buying the console that wasn't Sweetwater. And the experience was a way different experience. And I'm just going to leave it at that, okay? So SSL customer service is great, and so is Sweetwater on buying it. The other thing I like about this particular console, and I would assume most modern consoles, even by different brands, but I know for the SSL, is that the Origin doesn't need any special power installed. It doesn't need a machine room. It doesn't have these massive power supplies. And that was one question that a few of you asked me in the past, you know, what's the running cost of this? And I will say it plugs right into your regular 110 outlet here in the US. The electric bill, pardon me, I haven't even noticed a spike in the electric bill. I don't run this thing 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. It probably runs 3 to 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. So it does run quite a bit, but I don't even notice the increase in electrical costs. And it is in my home studio and it's sharing the same power as the rest of my house. And by electric bill, really maybe going up a little bit, but it's insignificant. It's very energy efficient. The power supplies are all internal to the board. There is no special machine room like the old vintage consoles where you had racks of power supplies and they had to be in a machine room and they had to have 220 power and they had to have air conditioning and all that. You don't need that with this. It does have a low power sleep mode if you want to keep it on all the time. However, I do power this down when I'm not using it. And when speaking to SSL early on, they said they do the same. They didn't say you couldn't do that. It doesn't say you shouldn't do that. The older vintage consoles, that was one of the things. They were supposed to stay powered up all the time. The power supplies did not like to be turned on and off. Again, this I haven't had an issue with, but it does have a low power mode that if I wanted to keep it on all the time, I guess I could. But again, from an electric point of view, from a running cost point of view, it's insignificant. Doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't matter. So I love that about this particular console. And again, I would assume most modern consoles are the same thing. The other thing I like about it is that it's not as big as you think. And as I look at this on camera, it looks bigger than it really is. I mean, it is a 32, fader board, 32 long, 32 short fader console, unlike the old E consoles and G consoles where those were typically 48 channels. So they would be a whole nother bucket larger. This is not as large as those. It's not like the big old aircraft carrier. But you only have, it's only, 2 buckets of 16 with 8 in the center section. So the width of this thing is only 72 inches and it's 43 inches in depth. 72 inches long is the size of my in the box rig. It's like a typical desk, maybe a little larger than a standard desk. It's not very big. It doesn't take up the whole room. In the pictures, it looks a little bit bigger. To me, it looked bigger than when I got it here. I said, oh, it's not as big as I thought it was. And even on camera, it looks bigger than it really is. So it can fit pretty much in any studio. I mean, it's not, you could put it in your home studio. It really isn't that big. The other thing I like about the Origin, and this is just because it's an inline console of the E-series, of kind of the design of it, is it is very easy laid out and it's very easy to learn and it's very intuitive in the way it's laid out. And you could pretty much, with the routing capabilities and the flexibility of this, it's really kind of a nice all-in-one package from recording to mixing music. It's all really, really simply laid out. And again, if you've never worked on a large format console, it could look intimidating with all the knobs and switches, but as most people would know, that once you learn one channel strip, it's exactly the same, duplicated 32 times. The master section's pretty easily laid out. It's really intuitive. We didn't have to break out the manual very many times, I don't think at all, to learn how to use it. We had to do it when we were hooking it up. You can go watch those videos, but it's very logical. If you've ever used a live mixer for like live gigs and stuff, like an old Mackie mixer or one of those, it's very similar in that approach. It's not a difficult thing to undertake. So if you've never used one and you're considering getting into the consoles and you see all this stuff and you go, oh my goodness, this is crazy, all these knobs and buttons, I'll never learn this. It's really not that bad. I think SSL is probably the king of inline, simple, easy to use. That would probably be my bet. So it's easy to understand, really like that, super easy to work on, very quick, very great. The other thing I like about it, again, and I've said this in other videos, everything you run through, it just sounds great. I mean, it just sounds great. There hasn't been a session we put through this thing yet that didn't sound good. Now, yeah, we're working with well recorded tracks, and even in the box, if you don't have good recorded tracks, you're gonna have a tough time. But I will say, whether it was home recorded tracks in a home studio with not very high-end preamps, microphones, and interfaces, or whether it was recorded in a multi-million-dollar studio, I put those kinds of sessions here, and everything just sounds better when you run it through. It has that familiar sound, and I think the The reason for that is because most of the records that were made in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, and even still up through today, even though I know there's a lot of guys working more in the box, most of those records were mixed. I'd say probably 80% of them, maybe even more. I don't know the exact statistic, but I would assume 80% of those records were mixed on an SSL console back in those days. And so you're familiar with that kind of sound. This has that kind of sound. It just does. As soon as we run the first mix through this thing, raw audio, no EQ, no compression, no hardware. We just pushed up the faders, a little bit of bus compression, and we went, that's the sound. And that's the truth. It's hard to convey that in a YouTube video. You've seen and heard the board in action on YouTube already on our channel. But unless you sit in the room and sit in the sweet spot, you really can't get the appreciation of it. I understand now what the old timers were talking about when they talk about that stuff. Like I said, I've worked on analog consoles in the very distant past, but never in any great length. Back in those days, I was learning how to be a recording engineer, and there was someone working the board. So I learned a little, but I didn't have a lot of hands-on experience with the board, but a little bit. But I had forgotten what that sound was. And coming from someone who works solely in the box, and I teach in the box, and you all know about home recording made easy, and I love working in the box and all that stuff. This is a way different type of sound, okay? And it's got that familiar sound, and it just sounds great, and anything you put through this console sounds good. It just does. Again, that's my opinion, but it just does. So everything sounds great. The last thing I really like about this particular console, which is different from consoles of years gone by, is the center section. The center section, if you don't know, you can see it a little bit here, is done in, it's a 19-inch width space, 19-inch rack space, and that's done on purpose by design. You can unscrew the whole master section and bring the whole master section down if you want it closer to you, or you can push it up top, and you can install, like I have here, a UF8, right, for automation and for DAW control. This space is also large enough, if you didn't want to put a surface control, you could put two 500 series racks in this space and load it up with modules. So if you wanted to put two 10-space racks in here and put 10 of the SSL dynamic sections in here, because this board doesn't have dynamics, we'll talk about that in a bit, you could do that, have all your compression right in front of you, or any other kind of processing. I chose to go with the UF8 because I like the plug-in control and some of the other things. But what's nice about it, it's customizable to whatever you would like to do. You can even, in the center section, pull down the metering and pull that down, and you come out a flat screen display there. So if you had a computer monitor you wanted right here, you can move that down. So you have some flexibility in the center section, which is really great. That's an awesome feature with the SSL Origin. So those are the things that I really, really like about it. You know, again, it's a great console. I love it. However, there are a few things that I wish this had that it doesn't have, or that are inconveniences. And I think there are things that you would not expect me to say. Some of you would expect me to say, well, it doesn't have any dynamics, Dave. Is that one of the things you don't like about it? No, not really. That's not really, it doesn't have that. You're right. And that's not one of the reasons. Some of you might say it doesn't have any recall, has no automation, has no instant recall or recall assist. Is that one of the things? No, not really. Would those things be great to have? Sure, those things would be great to have. But again, as we talked about in other videos, and I'll say it here again if you haven't seen those other videos yet, but you're going to, right? Because you're going to go watch all my videos after this, is that this is, when I purchased this console, a $50,000 console, a little less, $49,000 console. For $49,000, you're not going to get a desk that has 32 dynamic sections in it. If you put 32 dynamics in this, you're adding another $30,000 to $40,000 in cost, right? So now this becomes a $75,000, $80,000 console. If you then added any kind of automation or recall assist packages, you are now well over $100,000. And so for me, as much as that would be great to have, and those features are in some more of the flagship SSLs, it was just too big of a bridge for me to cross there, too long of a bridge. It was way out of reach for me financially. So as much as I would like those things, I haven't really missed it as much as I thought I would, and that's not really it. But there are a couple of small things I wish this had that to me seemed like it would be really, really simple. The first thing is that on our 8 group channels, our 16 buses, 8 stereo or 16 mono buses here, group channels, you do have insert points. So you can insert compression and EQ on these. For example, I have my first group is my drum bus, and I have a drum bus compressor on it inserted all the time. The problem is you cannot bypass the insert circuit sitting right here at the console at the channel, like you can on an individual channel. So any one of the 32 channels, you have an insert point. Boom. If I put a compressor on track channel 15 and I want to hear it with compression, without compression, it's a tap of a button. Perfect, right in the sweet spot. I don't have to go anywhere. It's right there. I could hear it right where I want to hear it. Boom, boom. Take it in, take it out. Can't do that on the buses. There's no switch. There's no way to do it. The only way you can do it is you have to go over to the compressor and bypass it on the compressor itself. If your compressor has a bypass switch. Most of them do, but some compressors do not. Hence, the LA2A, which I have over on the rack here, has no bypass. So if you add that on, let's say, a mono bass bus, and let's say you put your LA2A there for whatever reason, if you wanted to bypass that compression, you can't. That's I think a misstep and a design flaw, if I could be so bold. It's a great console, but to me, that would have been such a convenient feature. I don't know why they didn't do that. I can't imagine it would have changed the cost all that much. You did it on all other 32 channels. Why couldn't you have done it here? I think you can even also do it on the small fader. There's an insert point, I believe, also on the small. Yeah, there is. Insert in and out. There's an insert point on the small faders too. So you have 64 faders here that you could pull the effect in and out with the insert button, but you can't do it on the buses. That's the first thing I really, really wish that this had. The second thing, which again, I don't understand why they did this, is that the last piece of the console that any audio hits is that bus compressor, which is fantastic, right? Who doesn't like the SSL bus compressor? We all love it. It's fantastic. It sounds amazing. You can insert a processor on the master bus, but you can only insert it before the compressor. So if you have something like an SSL Fusion, like I have, I would love to put that Fusion after the bus compressor, not before. Can't do it. Not easily. There is no way you can take it in and out. There's no insert button on the buses, but there's an insert button on the master section, so I can either take the compressor in and out, or I can take the Fusion in and out, or both. But I can't reverse the order. Again, to me, that's a misstep. And again, if I misunderstand that, please let me know in the comments below. I spoke to my buddy James over there at SSL, and I asked him. He says you can't do it. And to me, the Fusion, should go after the bus compressor. And mainly the reason for that is when we were testing the SSL, we were going through all its settings, and we'll do a video on that at another time, me and Dave. When you get to the stereo width and you can really widen the mix in a very subtle way on the Fusion, when you put it before the bus compressor, the compressor then actually squeezes it. It feels like it pulls the mix in a little more narrow. When we bypass the bus compressor and just turn on the Fusion, the mix tends to jump out a little bit more in the speakers. That's great, but then I gotta bypass the bus compressor. I wish there was a way to just flip the order. I should be able to insert either before or after that compressor with a touch of a button, but you can't. And again, if I've misunderstood that, and there's an SSL Origin out there that watches this channel, and I know there's some of these out there, because I know my buddy Terry and a few other people have SSL Origins. If you've been able to figure out a way to do that, please let me know. But according to SSL, the way I understand it, you can't. And according to the manual, you can't. So that's another thing that I don't like about it. The other thing that I wish was, that I don't like, and again, I've heard this from SSL, again, make sure that I'm not misunderstanding, it would have been great to be able to put the Fusion right in the center section, right in front of me, if I didn't want the UF8. It's wide enough, but the SSL Fusion is too deep. The cavity is not deep enough. And the SSL Fusion is not that big of a box. So that means that you are limited to the type of processors that you could put in the center section. And to me, that's another misstep. And it doesn't miss it by much. It only misses it by about that much, about 2 inches. So if this cavity was just a little bit deeper, even in the center, you could have been able to do that. You can't put it in here. So again, I think that's a design flaw that would have just made things a little bit easier, a little bit nicer, a little bit more convenient. When you're adjusting processors like the Fusion, it'd be great to be able to sit in the sweet spot and not have to move away to make the adjustment and go back and forth. That's just my opinion. So again, I know those are little inconvenience things, but those are some of the things that I wish it had that it doesn't have. Other than that, I think the board is great. So in conclusion, I know there are several of you, because I've talked to you on the phone, that they were in the market, you were in the market for a console prior to finding our YouTube channel, and you actually bought an Origin. I know there's 2 people for sure that actually bought an Origin based on our videos on this YouTube channel. They were in the market for a console anyway, shopping around, looking at the Origin, maybe looking at some other things, but they bought the Origin because of the channel that we have here and the fact that we showed how to set it up, and Dave and I were, you know, crawling all over the floor and plugging in cables and walking you through the whole process. So those people felt, oh, I have some support to actually get this thing installed. I don't see this anywhere else on YouTube. And they bought an Origin because of it. And I'm so happy that you did that. And I'm so happy we're able to help. And I hope that you're enjoying your Origin as much as me. But when I talk to these people, and I've had other people seek me out and actually call me on the phone and ask me some questions, and this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video. The first question that comes out of people's mouths is, now that you've worked on it a while, Dave, what do you think? Do you regret buying it? Did you think it was too much money? Is it what you expected when you bought it? Has it lived up to your expectations thus far? Not only functionality-wise, price-wise, sound-wise, and other. And I will say, and again, I'm not sponsored by SSL. I mean, I know James over there, he's been very kind to me. I didn't get a discount on the console. I don't get paid to get on camera and say anything about this console or SSL or anybody else. This is just my honest opinion. Not only do I not regret it, I think it was worth every penny that I paid for it. And at $49,000, I feel in the console world, and I've looked at other consoles, I've sat and demoed other major manufacturers' consoles that were way more expensive than this, and some of them even had less features than this. And so for what you're getting here, I don't see how you could get a better deal as far as that goes. To get 32 long faders, 32 short faders, so it means at mixdown you have the capability of mix of 64 channels, right? You can mix 64 channels independently. So some people say, well, 32 faders, it's not like the old E-series, which are 48 faders. Is 32 enough? Well, you have 64, and that doesn't include the group channels. You have 64 mono tracks that all have insert points, they'll have their own panning. Yes, you have to share the EQ, but if you're working hybrid, like this is a modern console like I am, that's not really a big deal. So there's plenty of faders. 32 preamps, 32 E-series EQs, the SSL bus compressor, a full talkback Q setup, stereo returns for effects, auxes, group channels. I don't see where someone would say, if you really understand what the console market is, how anyone could say this is not what it's worth. It is, very much so. I don't regret it a single bit. I really enjoy working on it, and I think it sounds fantastic. You know, it is so much different than working solely in the box. And again, we've talked about this in other videos. I'm not here saying you can't get a good sound in the box. Of course you can. I've been teaching that for over 10 years, and I still to this day have a whole online school about mixing and recording and mastering and EQ and compression only with plugins solely in the box. And there's a lot of things you can do in the box that you can't do in the analog world. That is absolutely true. And even if you believe the sound between those two kind of approaches could be identical, meaning that you could get the same sound with plugins. We can argue about whether you can or can't in another video, but even if it was identical, working on this console, working in an analog workflow is so much more, for me, enjoyable. It's so much more quick to get to the final sound. Plugins you can get there as well, but it takes a lot longer. And you feel like you're part of the music. The tactile feel of touching the knobs and moving faders and going over to the hardware and plugging, patching stuff and putting your hands on stuff. It's a whole different experience than working solely in the box of plugins. It's completely different. So has it lived up to my expectations? It absolutely has. And the more that I work on this, the more that I enjoy it. I had forgotten from many years ago how much fun it was to work in this way. And you feel more inspired, I do anyway, to work on this than just working with plugins in the box. That's great. Love plugins in the box. Love it, love it, love it. That's where most people live. There's nothing wrong with it. I hear the arguments about the Andrew Sheps of the world. Amazing engineer working all in the box. I get it. That's not for debate. All I'm saying is this is a way different experience for me, and I love it and don't regret it. The other thing about this too, which I really like, is that, as I alluded to a little earlier, I bought this in June of 2021. This was a $49,000 console. Today, if you try to buy one, they're 60 grand. They've gone up, with inflation and everything else all over the world. Has also all kind of good quality gear. It's all gone up 20%. And so, one thing about owning this kind of stuff, and one of the reasons why I bought SSL, the name brand, even though, again, it sounds great and everything, but one of the things that I love about SSL is I got a long, history of making high quality consoles, and they're if they're not the most popular in the business, they're in the top 2, right? 2 or 3 for sure. In other words, having something like this, it retains its value. If you ever wanted to sell this down the road, you're going to get most of your money back, or a good portion of it back. When you buy good quality gear, you have name brand stuff and you take care of it and it's well maintained. You have something that's worth something. And so, I'm sad to see that it's gone up to $11,000, meaning that if you wanted to buy one, you're not going to buy it for what I paid for it. But I'm happy for me that it's gone up and it's increased in value, and that's a good thing as well. So it's an investment. Something like this is an investment. And the last thing I'll say is that if you've never worked on an analog desk of any kind, and you work solely in the box, and even if you're not in the market to buy one of these things, it's not in your it's not in your future plans, but you want to know what the experience is like, I would highly recommend it. There hasn't been a person that has come here, that has touched this console, that when they first walk in and see it and start working on it, their face lights up. And it's just like with me and Dave. I've had a couple of people come in here, with COVID and everything, we've been really careful, but I've had a couple of friends come in, and people that work solely in the box, people who have never really worked on a console, as soon as they sit in this chair and they get the session up and they start pushing up the faders, their face just lights up. And I think anyone that's into this kind of stuff, if you've never done it, if you have an opportunity to go to a local studio, if you know somebody, I would recommend it. I think you'd really enjoy it. It is such an enjoyable experience for me. And again, if there's anyone that's on the East Coast, if you reach out to me at one point when it's safe to get around people again, if you're interested, I would be more than happy to talk to you, to possibly let you come in and demo it at one point. That's how my buddy Dave and I became friends. Dave was a follower and a student of mine, and we became good friends over the last couple of years. And when I was going to get ready to go on this project and embark on this journey, I invited him to come along, and he's been a tremendous help. And he too, he comes in here and he's like a kid in a candy store, and he'd be the first to say it. He's like, wow. And this is a guy who mixes all in the box of plugins, and he's a great mixer too, and he's a good engineer, and he just says it's a different feeling. So I would encourage anyone to at least try to experience it. If you've never had the opportunity to, you should, because once you do that, you may not be in the market to buy something like an Origin, but maybe you're in the market one day to buy a desktop kind of. SSL makes some desktop type of consoles, tabletop stuff, or that are a lot more affordable, or even like we've talked about before, things like the UFA or some kind of a surface control. It's the same kind of tactile feel. I think it's time to get away from just using a mouse and a keyboard and get your hands back on the gear. I think that's so important, and I think people really enjoy it. I know I do. So that is kind of my 6-month update. Maybe in another 6 months, as I get more into this thing, I will do another update video. If you guys want, leave comments below. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions about the Origin, or anything you'd like to see for a video that hasn't already been done, leave it in the comments below. People have asked me, are you going to record on it? You're going to show us recording on it and how the preamps sound when you record and all that. Yes, at one point we are going to record on it. Right now, with everything going on in the world with the pandemic, I just can't have a bunch of people here, but I'd love to track drums through it. I'd love to bring a small band in here and do it. I have this space, it's a little tight, but we could do it. And I'd love to do it, but it's just not in the cards right now. But yes, at one point we are gonna record through this thing, and we are gonna go through that process and the talkback system and the headphone system and all that. So we will do that, but if there's anything else you want to see in the meantime, something I can do for you here, please leave it in the comments below and let me know. So thanks so much for joining me for this little update. I hope it's helpful to some of you, and to all of my fellow Origin owners out there, brothers and sisters, congratulations on your purchase. And again, thanks to some of you that have reached out to me, and I appreciate the help, and we're all here trying to learn from each other, and I'm happy to be part of the community. And again, thank you so much to SSL, and thank you, James, for being so great with your customer service, and certainly Sweetwater, I can't forget them. And then, of course, thank you to my buddy Dave, who helped me install and commission this thing, because the one thing I will tell you, this is a two-person operation when you go to install one of these things. I hope those videos were informative. I couldn't have done it without him. And hopefully, again, we'll see more of Dave on this channel as things start to clear up and it's safe to be around each other again. I'd love to get Dave in here, and Dave wants to work on this a little bit more. He's only done a couple of mixes, and he's eager to get in here too and start working on it. And I'm sure he'll produce some videos of him doing that as well. So until the next video, please like, share, subscribe. It really does help. Leave comments below. And until the next video, I've been Dave with Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com. Thank you so very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.